If I had not changed my relationship with technology from where it was even just 5 years ago, this YouTube channel that you are watching right now would not exist. My book would not exist. My private practice, the North Star Psychological Center, would not exist. My relationship with my wife and my kids and my extended family would be dramatically worse. My physical health would be dramatically worse. And my mental health and my overall quality of life would be a shadow of what it is today. And I wasn't even that addicted to technology. I was, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't like absurdly addicted to the point where I did nothing else. I firmly believe that the level of normalcy and just cultural values around screens and phones and gaming and the internet is dramatically out of proportion to what it ideally should be for mental health. And I firmly believe, from both personal and professional experience, that the constant rise in mental illness, despite all of the supposed societal agendas and general quality of life improvements that should be improving our mental health, is not only attributable to technology, but is a large proportion of it is. I think we have a huge problem as a society that very few people are willing to acknowledge and willing to address. And if you choose to have a relationship with technology that is beneficial to your mental health, you are going to be a culturally atypical person. And you're going to feel different, and you're going to feel left out, and you're going to feel awkward. This is not a popular opinion. And I want you to know that my goal with this particular piece of content is not to attack you. It is not to judge your lifestyle. It is just to give you information that I think you may want to have in order for you to make healthy, informed decisions about the role of technology in your life. Please know that I understand how hard life can be. And I understand how badly we all, every day, feel like we need an escape from that harsh reality. I spent, in some way, shape, or form, probably 20 years of my life escaping from everything I was dealing with and escaping into gaming and into anime and shows and movies and fandoms. This does not come from ignorance. Quite the opposite. Everything I'm going to say to you today comes from the perspective of having experimented thoroughly with two very different types of coping styles and realizing that, at least for me, only one of them actually works. And the other one just leads me further and further down and creates a self-perpetuating cycle of my life getting worse and worse, and therefore my need to escape my life going up and up until it is absolutely unsustainable and something has to give. If that's kind of how you feel, then this is for you. And I really, really hope that you can listen to what I have to say today with an open mind, because it's probably going to be a little bit hard to hear. All human beings face a universal core dilemma. Every person, I don't just mean mentally ill people. We all have the same problem. We wake up every day with a finite amount of time, a limited amount of time to allocate in that day, and a nearly limitless or infinite range of things we could allocate that time to. It's not literally infinite, but functionally it is. You could not do everything that the world has to offer, right? It is not possible. And so what we do every day is we make cuts. And we think of the things we either want to do or need to do. And there's probably more of that than you could possibly fit into a day. And so some of it doesn't make the cut. And what you choose to keep and what you choose to cut can be the deciding factor in whether your mental health goes better or worse on that particular day. Most of us do what I call top-down time budgeting. You may not do it consciously, but you do it. So every decision you make about, like, I'm going to do this thing and not this thing, that's time budgeting. Just like if you have an actual, like a financial budget, you have a certain amount of money that you allocate towards certain bills and certain leisure expenses, right? You do that with your time as well. You maybe don't plan it out, but at the end of the day, you've spent some amount of time on this, etc. Top-down time budgeting is when you spend your free time basically doing whatever feels the most enjoyable or the most pleasurable in that moment. You go for like the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Whatever feels most stimulating or most interesting or most fun, that's what you're going to do with your time. This would be similar, going back to finances, to you get a paycheck, and the first thing you do with that paycheck, you should go out and you buy a bunch of fun stuff. And you hope and pray that you have enough money left over to pay your rent and pay your insurance and put gas in your car, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not just a metaphor. I've done that too. I'll make a whole other video on finances someday. That's why I have an eBay power seller account, because the number of times that I have stretched my budget too thin and realized I didn't have enough left over to pay my bills is higher than I would care to admit on YouTube. And I have had to scrounge through my personal belongings to figure out what the heck can I sell so that I can pay the internet bill this week or whatever. I learn lessons slowly, but when I learn them, they stick. And if you've lived that way financially, you know how stressful and miserable that is. And when you're making that decision, when you're buying the fun thing or going out and having that experience, you know in the back of your mind, I shouldn't be doing this right now. And it eats away at you and it makes the experience less fun, but you do it anyway. This is what so many of us do with our time. We're done with work. We're done with like all the obligations and responsibilities that we can't get out of, and we have some amount of time left over. And for most people, the majority of that time, in some form or another, gets spent on technology. Usually on phones, scrolling, social media, sometimes it's gaming, it can be whatever. So much of it goes to that. And we don't have enough left over to take care of the actual fundamental roles and responsibilities that we have, that our mental health requires of us, and that life requires of us in general. This is a harsh reality. I'm going to say it again and again and again, though, because there's no escaping it and you need to know it. If you have one or more chronic mental health conditions, depression, bipolar disorder, generalized anxiety, social anxiety, panic disorder, OCD, you have a chronic mental health condition. You may have multiple chronic mental health conditions. You may also have multiple chronic physical health conditions. Every chronic health condition that you have basically raises your requirements. Like it's that much more time and that much more energy that you have to spend in a day to just keep yourself doing okay. And if you don't spend it, your life will start to collapse and you will start to decompensate. Your requirements are high as a mentally ill person. So are mine. I can't mess around with sleep. I can't mess around. If I don't get physical activity in for like 2 or 3 days, the difference in my emotion regulation, in the clarity of my thoughts. This is just one random example. It is like my wife can notice it. So it's not even just confirmation bias. She knows, like she can tell if I haven't worked out in a while because my personality changes and my functioning changes and I get way more depressed, I get anxious, I get cranky, I get short-tempered. That is something I need to do regularly to manage my mental health. That is a bill that I have to pay. And it has taken me so much trial and error to realize that if I don't prioritize that, and I do this top-down time allocation, and I let myself spend 3, 4, 5 hours gaming or on phones, whatever, there is not enough time left over in the day to do the things that I need to do. And if you have even an average level of human responsibility, if you have a job or you're in school, if you have kids, like if you have even one of those 3 things, that's a huge time commitment. You've also got to sleep. You've got to take care of you. The amount of time that you are going to have left over for leisure activity, if you actually take care of your basic human needs, is not going to be 7, 8, 9 hours. And that kind of sucks, I know. In theory, I would love for that to be true. I would love to tell you, yeah, you can easily afford to spend 8 hours today doing whatever you want to do. But you can't. You don't have that, and neither do I. And our only choices are to accept that or to live in denial of it and watch our lives spiral further and further out of control. What I want to encourage you to do is the opposite. Bottom up. Did you just hear the eBay notification go off? Pay no mind to that. That was perfect timing. I hope the mic catches that. That'll be hilarious. Bottom up processing. What that means is when you're looking at your day, I want you to figure out, what do I need to do today to stay okay? Physically, mentally, financially, and socially. And for some of us, spiritually as well. Those are your 5 big picture things. Like if all 5 of those are in, it doesn't have to be perfect, obviously. It never will be perfect. Perfection is never the goal. But if all 5 of those things are in a decent place, this feeling you have of needing to escape your own life constantly and like put your brain into a phone for a while because you can't handle being here because it's so miserable, will start to decrease. Those are the things you should be prioritizing. Now let me give you myself as an example. My job takes 8 to 10 hours a day, counting drive time, and I sleep for 8 hours a day. So that's already like I have 6 hours left. Just taking care of those 2 basic essentials if I really do them the way I need to do them. I'm probably going to spend close to an hour today doing some combination of preparing and or ordering, mostly ordering these days, eating and cleaning up after myself. So let's say an hour goes to nutrition and nourishment. Most days I spend about an hour being physically active as well, some combination of cardio, weight training, and stretching. So that's, I forgot to do I got like 4 hours left now. That's 20 hours that I've allocated already for just basic self-care. I'm probably also going to want to spend at least 2, ideally probably 3 hours with my wife and kids, or maybe a friend or like a distant family member, usually my wife and kids, because that's just kind of how my life is oriented. That leaves me with 1 or 2 hours left over. And that is about the maximum for what my screen time should be. If it is more than that, I have compromised one of those things that I just said for technology. And my mental health is going to get worse, bottom line, as a result. If I allow myself to do top-down budgeting, I will sacrifice any and all of those things. I am not proud of this. I find this incredibly embarrassing to admit. I've sacrificed every one of those things to play one more game or watch one more show. I have neglected my children, not in like a they're not safe kind of way, but in like a they wanted to talk to me or do fun stuff with me. And I was like, no, I'm doing this. I've neglected sleep. I've neglected physical activity. I've neglected everything that is important to me for screens, for technology. And that is the biggest problem with this. I don't necessarily believe there are some things on phones and on social media that are inherently harmful. So like cyberbullying, for example, that has a direct negative consequence for a person's mental health. And I think those are the kinds of things most people think about when they hear like, ooh, social media or screens or phones are bad for our mental health. They think of things where there's an obvious direct harm. And those things exist, but that's not the main problem. And that's what I think most people use to accidentally trick themselves into thinking what they're doing is fine. Because you think, well, if I'm not like, gambling or something like that, if I'm not doing something that clearly harms me, then it's fine. The majority of harm caused by technology is indirect. It's not that the thing you're doing is bad or hurts you. It is simply that it is taking the place of something that is more important or more fundamental for your mental health. Because the things that we really need are less stimulating and less rewarding in the moment. I enjoy working out. And yet, if you ask me like right now, which is more fun, going to the gym for an hour or playing a video game on your phone for an hour, it's the game. Even for me, who likes working out, and it's not even particularly close, to be honest with you. This stuff is designed and engineered to be maximally, stimulating for your brain. Because this stuff is made by giant corporations who want your money, and they don't care. Your money is your attention, because it's ads and stuff, right? They don't care how that affects you. They don't care about your mental health. They will absolutely sabotage your mental health and throw you under the bus for their CEO to make an extra $10 this year. They will. They do. The only person who has the ability to put the proper boundaries and parameters around technology in your life and make sure your mental health does not die because of a stupid phone is you. No one's going to do this for you unless you're like 3. In which case, why are you watching this? You shouldn't be. You have to decide where that line is for you. You have to decide at what point does the amount of time I'm investing in this thing start to compromise the core foundational elements of my mental health, the bottom up time budgeting. I don't see how that line could be more than like 3 or 4 hours tops. Like, I recognize that because I kind of I have all of those things. Like, I have job and family and stuff. So like, some people don't have all those things. And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. Just, I recognize you may not be as busy as me. That's not judgment. Just, you might not be. So maybe your line isn't an hour like mine is. But if you're telling yourself that it's 7 or 8, you're either the most low maintenance person in the world, in which case I don't know why you're on this channel, because you probably don't identify with me at all, since I am one of the most high maintenance people in the world, or you're lying to yourself, because there's no way that you can take care of everything you need to actually enjoy your life and enjoy being you in like 8 waking hours a day. There's just not. And if you're not sleeping 8 hours a day, that's part of the problem. This is what we do. We flip our hierarchy of needs upside down. We make an inverted pyramid, and we focus primarily on the top level stuff because it's fun and engaging and stimulating and rewarding. What do you think happens to a pyramid if you flip it upside down? It collapses. And that is what our lives do when we make technology the focus. When it becomes disproportionately important, maybe not even like morally, but just in terms of investment of time. I want you to strongly consider practicing bottom-up time allocation. I'm not saying that you need to get rid of technology or cut off your internet. I don't advocate for that. These things are tools. Like every tool, they have good, safe, helpful, appropriate uses. 1,000,000%. Like I'm literally a social media person, so I'm obviously not going to be like, social media is inherently bad. But the amount of time that it occupies in the majority of people's lives is destructive and damaging. And I'm betting that you have felt that. I'm betting that you know that. That is probably a huge part of why things just keep getting worse and worse and worse for you, and why your need to escape seems to just be going up and up and up, because you're not attending to your foundation. You're not taking care of your basic needs, and you're sacrificing it for leisure and short-term pleasure. It will never work. It just won't. I have tried it on your behalf thoroughly. It doesn't work. Please consider this. It's a hard thing to do. And like I said at the beginning, you will feel very different from most people. Like my relationship with my phone is not what most people's is. And that sometimes makes me feel kind of like an outcast, but it is what it is. That is what I need for my mental health. I hope that you can use what I've shared with you today to reorganize your life and make sure your allocation of time is what you need it to be for your mental health. As always, take care, and I will see you next time.